Hello everybody, welcome to Also Rusty Buckets. Subscribe to the channel if you are not already, and drop a like on this video, all that stuff. So today's video is going to be not, I think probably the most unique type of just different thing from what I'm normally doing on here, because this is like a post-game recap, but not really. I'm really just doing like a talk about the Bulls and how they've looked since acquiring Vucevic, and some potential concerns I have, some of the positives, all of that. Through 2 games thus far, I realize it's 2 games, so there's no opinion here that's like, oh yeah, this is definitely set in stone, but there are things that are worth noting and things to look at. So I'm probably going to upload this before a bunch of games happen. They're playing the Suns today with no Zach LaVine, which is a part of the conversation. So I'm not gonna bother with that game being a part of it, just because without Zach, the Bulls are obviously much worse. But I might do this with some teams just from time to time, because I don't feel like this topic is warranted on the main channel. Don't think it would do very well, but I figured if I have an idea like that, might as well slap it on the second channel. So yeah, that's what this video is. So for the Bulls, since getting Vucevic, they are 0-2, which is obviously not the best start in the world. A big part of this has been Zach LaVine's injury. He got hurt versus, I think it was the Spurs he got hurt versus, or it might have been the team before that. And he did not play good in that game, other than like a third quarter outburst. And the Bulls actually in that Spurs game went down by 30 points, I think 35 at one point. But they actually made a comeback to get it till at one point a 9-point game with like 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. The Spurs ended up turning it back on to get the win, but it was nice to see them make that fight. The first game, the Bulls kind of struggled getting Vucevic the ball. There was not playmaking, of course, is an issue with this team, and they were struggling to make proper entry passes to him. A couple of turnovers off of that, or just simply not throwing the pass because they didn't know how to. So that wasn't really working. He was getting good post position, and they were not able to take advantage of it. He still had like 20 points, but there were multiple opportunities for him to score that he just simply did not get. He had a couple of hook shots. He took one fadeaway that was real ugly. I think it might have even been blocked, but other than that, he was fine. Good passes, all that stuff. The thing I like about Vucevic thus far, since watching him with the Bulls, is that he's pretty selective with his offense while still like not being passive. Like he doesn't turn down shot opportunities, but he also isn't forcing things often. And it's like he's generating 20 plus points per game without forcing anything, which is nice to see. Even Zach LaVine, as much as I love him, he forces things from time to time, and it's kind of annoying when that happens. You don't see that happening with Vucevic. So first game, the Bulls struggled to get him the ball, and then the team in general just was not shooting well. In fact, I would say through these first 2 games, Vucevic has been just fine. It's really been everything else around them that's not been great. The other thing that I wanted to make a note of was defense. The one positive that I was hoping from switching from Wendell Carter to Vucevic with this move would be that we'd have a better interior presence just in terms of size. Wendell is much better in terms of switching or stepping up on the pick and roll and all of those things. He has no issue closing out. He has no issue sticking on a guard for the most part, unless it's the elite of the elite in that category. Wendell can defend a lot of positions. He's very versatile. The one concern with him is that he's not that big, and often they run into a situation where big men go off on him because he's not able to just body them in the paint. Vucevic, while he's not nearly as versatile on the perimeter and is much more slow-footed, he is also bigger, and generally speaking, and I've had conversations with Magic fans, really just Zay on this, but Vooch is better at just dealing with physicality. And in the first game, well, the Spurs had like 30 points in the paint out of like 40 of their first 40 points, obviously. There was just no paint defense at all, and he kept backing up on like mid-range shots out of the pick and roll, and it's like that's the consequence of getting a drop big. Wendell is not a drop big. Sometimes he was utilized like it in Chicago, but for the most part, he has no issue stepping up. And Vucevic was dropping a lot and allowing floaters and mid-range shots and things like that. So it wasn't a great look there. Second game, though, He was fine. Defensively, he was much, much better. We were playing the Golden State Warriors. He got lost on a couple of Wiseman pick and rolls because Wiseman's just a lot faster than him, a couple of alley-oops and things like that. But for the most part, I would say that his defense was improved after the Spurs game. It also is worth mentioning that for that Spurs game, that the Bulls literally did not even get a chance to practice with Vucevic before their first game. Like, they literally just like, okay, we're just going to play an NBA game right now. You didn't even get a chance to play with the guy already. Your first time playing with Vucevic as your teammate is going to be an NBA game, which is not the most ideal circumstance. So that's a big factor. But, don't go down 30 to the Spurs. That shouldn't have happened. But again, it was mostly just poor shooting over anything else, even though the defense was not good. But second game versus the Warriors, it was a more competitive game for the most part. And really the biggest reason why the Bulls lost this game is that, well, really two things. First of all, Draymond Green hit 3 3-pointers, which is the first time he did that since like early 2019. So that was cool, including a logo 3, which definitely didn't piss me off. Another factor was that Zach LaVine was real bad in this game, but it wasn't really his fault. It was very clear that his ankle injury that he had was a problem. He was, last I checked in the box score, he was 4 for 14, and then he didn't play like most of the fourth quarter because Billy Donovan said that he did not look right and he didn't want to risk something bigger, so he took him out of the game. There was already understood to be something wrong with Zach's ankle, but he wanted to play through it. And he had not missed a game in the regular season to this point, but he's going to be missing this Suns game. So that's really a thing. And I should mention in general, the chemistry between Zach and Vooch has not really been there thus far. They've ran a couple of pick and pops and things like that. I don't even know if Vooch has gotten an assist to Zach yet. So that chemistry hasn't really had an opportunity to develop yet. I imagine that will progress as time moves on. Speaking of chemistry, though, in this game in particular, Patrick Williams, his playmaking was phenomenal, and he had 4 assists, and 3 of them were to Vucevic. One of them was an alley-oop to Daniel Tice, who was awesome in his debut as well, and Troy Brown was also awesome in his debut with the Spurs. He had 7 points in 5 minutes. But in general, there's been some fit struggle early, which is what you expect. But I do have concerns for the defense because, believe it or not, the Bulls actually got to the point of being roughly a middle-of-the-pack defense with Wendell there for this season. So I don't know why people keep acting like the Bulls have an abysmally bad defense. It's just they're middle of the pack. And then offensively, Vucevic's playmaking has been great. He had 6 assists in the first half. His scoring ability is great. Hit a couple of mid-range shots. His threes have not been dropping yet, but 2 games. So he is definitely just awesome offensively. There's no denying that. And he seemed to have no issue fitting within the offense himself. It was really the players around him that struggled to fit with him. He didn't really have issues within the flow of their offense. He got a couple of assists to Patrick as well, who got some floaters off of cuts and things like that. So just the playmaking from Vooch was awesome, and the Bulls have had issues with playmaking in general. I would still like a conventional playmaking point guard who can dribble, get into the lane, kick out, things like that. Vucevic can't really do that, but it is still nice. It is still another addition to where, look, now Thomas Satoransky is a decent passer, Thad Young is a great passer, and Vucevic is a great passer. So playmaking is much improved with this move. If I'm going to talk about the other side of this move, the Orlando Magic, I have not watched the Magic play. Actually, I did. I did watch one of their games, but Wendell Carter did not play, so that doesn't matter. I think his debut was against the Clippers. Or no, there's been 2 games since that one. There was a game against the Clippers yesterday, and I don't remember the game before. But this game, I was getting reports. I don't know why I'm saying that like it's some NBA insider. My friend Zay, who is a Magic fan, was telling me that Wendell was looking awesome. And I looked at the box score, and he was making all of his shots. He's told me he was setting good screens and playing great defense, and looked very confident. Which is a big thing with Wendell, is that he in Chicago was so clearly inside of his head all the time. Like, every little thing, he hesitated on everything, and it was very frustrating because it's not as if Wendell does not have the talent. He's a solid offensive player, and defensively, other than not having the best size in the world, he's really, really good. But so often on both ends of the court, he gets in his head and ends up being timid, and it clearly affects how good of a player he can actually be. So apparently, in his debut or maybe his second game with the Magic, just fantastic right out of the gate. So that's concerning to me. But at the same time, I do kind of feel like it was the trade that maybe pushed him in this direction, and maybe over time this will fade as that motivation disappears. But him looking great has me a little bit concerned that, like, obviously I want Wendell to do good, but if he ends up just being awesome right after he's traded from the Bulls, and that makes it look like you lost the trade and then you regret it. And then on top of it, I'm really concerned about the pick situation because the Bulls pick that they moved for this year, which I honestly wish they would have traded a future first, like a 2025 instead. This year is only top 4 protected. So they could very well end up missing the playoffs and don't get a lottery pick off of this move, like to trade for a 30-year-old center. Now, at the end of the day, I'm not going to be mad about a trade where the Bulls get a player that's going to secure Zach LaVine on the team for the future, because in a way, this was very similar to the Drew Holiday to the Bucks trade, where the trade itself might not actually end up being that great in terms of what you ended up giving up, but the move resulted in Giannis re-signing with the Bucks. This could be a move that results in Zach re-signing with the Bulls. I think it will be, in fact. But it will look real tough if Wendell ends up being really good, like one of the best centers in the league, like a fantastic defensive player, solid offensively, good playmaking, which he's been allowed to do more in Orlando from what I've heard. And then we miss like the 7th pick in the draft, and in a deep draft class that this one apparently is, you miss out on like a Zaire Williams or something like that who could be really good, and you miss out on like Wendell, who's really good and young, and a lottery pick who's really good and young for a 30-year-old center and another first round pick that could be decent. So it's definitely not a steal on the Bulls' part, and there's risk in this move. Ultimately, I'm still glad it happened, and I can't pretend not to be excited about landing a star player, even if the trade package isn't as good as it could be. But I'm still overly positive. I'm just a little bit like, this is probably me overthinking things more than anything else. But I just wanted to talk about some of my thoughts. In general, still a good move, but it's not as clear. I'm not as up on it as I was as soon as it happened, if that makes sense. A little bit more hesitation. But yeah, I just wanted to get that off my chest. I doubt anyone's going to care. This video is probably not going to do that well. But oh well, I had to talk about it. That's it. Bye.